you have a hold on this thing?
Hit! Nice shot, brother.
If you've ever been practicing magazine changes barefoot and you dropped a magazine directly on your toe and it really, really hurt, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like, comment, all that stuff helps me out quite a bit. Now, if you guys are looking to get some plaid shirts right here, this one is from Vertex. They're made for concealed carry specifically or for some type of duty use. Highly recommended, love them. If you want to get 25% off of them, discount code GRANDTHUMB, no spaces, gets you that sweet, sweet, lovely plaid. Now, if you're looking for ammunition, LAX ammo or Freedom Munitions, discount code GRANDTHUMB, 5%. If one has the ammo and the other doesn't, well then take that one. So 2 choices hooking you guys up. They support the channel, so let's support them as much as we can. Appreciate everything that you guys do for me. So also, we're staying on YouTube, nothing's happening, so don't worry. Now, today we're going to be talking about the Aimpoint Comp M5. So this is a relatively new offering from Aimpoint. It's their newest optic that's currently on the market as of this video. Now it is competing against several other optics, the Aimpoint Comp M4 and of course the venerable Aimpoint Comp T2. So we're going to talk about why you might choose one of these optics versus another and what makes the Comp M5 pretty damn good. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to be doing it with pros or cons, and I want to point out that a lot of the information that I've gotten is from ScalarWorks. They actually make the mount for this particular M5 right here. I've used several other of their mounts. I'm a huge fan of them. I do get their products for free. The Comp M5 was not for free. I did purchase it on my own. Full disclosure. As far as ScalarWorks go, the reason I reference them is because they are engineers. They know what they're doing regarding some of the more technical aspects of the Comp M5. See, I'm just a shooter, so my expertise is somewhat limited. That's why I go to other people who know a lot. That way I can give you guys as rounded, well-rounded of a review as possible. So first of all, what makes the Comp M5 kind of interesting is that it kind of sits between the size of the T2 and the Comp M4. So you see a Comp M4 right here, you can see it's much smaller, and then compared to the T2, it is smaller just by a little bit right there. So that goes with weight too. So the T2 weighs around 3 ounces. The Comp M4, let me look at my little data sheet right here, weighs 9.3 ounces approximately, while the M5 without a mount weighs around 5.2 ounces. So it's right in that middle ground. Now, no doubt the T2 is still lighter, one of the lightest and best optics on the market currently, but the Comp M5, while it has a little bit more weight, there are some added features that might be interesting to some of my viewers out there. So let's talk about those features that make it pretty good. So pros, this is the strongest Aimpoint optic currently. It is milled from 7075 T6, and that is in stark contrast to other Aimpoint optics which are not. So there's been some argument about that, but this is definitely milled from 7075. Incredibly durable and incredibly rugged. Further, there is a protective piece of glass in front of the lens. What that does is that if you're doing any type of parachuting into water, hard impacts, that type of stuff, it's going to protect it a little bit more. So it is the toughest Aimpoint optic out there currently. Now, that's not to say that the Aimpoint T2 or the Comp M4 are not rugged or reliable at all, because that would be an understatement to say that these are rugged and reliable. They are incredibly well vetted and well tested in a variety of situations and places and all over the world, and they do excellent. But if you're one of those guys that needs like the latest and the greatest and like the absolute toughest optic, there's no doubt that currently that would be the Aimpoint Comp M5. Now, of course, you do add some weight and those types of things, so it's going to depend on what you do, whether or not you choose the Aimpoint Comp M5. A couple other things about the Comp M5. Battery life. So it does host a 50K battery life. Now, what's interesting about that is that battery life was based off of a regular alkaline battery. So these do use AAA batteries. So if you use a lithium battery, you actually get above 50K on that battery life. So the T2 has 50K battery life, but at the same time, with the lithium, you do exceed the battery life of the T2. Now, how big of a deal is that? Because 50,000 hours is approximately 5 years. It's not that big of a deal. Now, it should be noted that if you have this at really high settings all the time, it's going to be less than 5 years. But in any case, Aimpoints run forever, so it's not that big of a deal. These do use AAA batteries. And the reason that it uses AAAs is that AAAs are a little bit easier to source overseas. So if you're a guy who's working overseas, it might be a good idea to take a hard look at the Comp M5 because it will likely be slightly easier to get your hands on the batteries that this needs. Now, again, how often are you going to need to change them? So it might be a moot point, but nonetheless, the batteries are easier to find. So batteries. Optical clarity. It is approximately the same optics as the T2. So from what I've heard and what I've seen, it is pretty much the same optics. So you are going to have that awesome, clear, super great optical quality and all that kind of stuff. And the great, and you're going to have that excellent dot intensity, and you know, it can, if you look into an Aimpoint at like max setting, it can look like you're looking into the sun and all that kind of stuff. So it has all that. Now, the tube on the Comp M5 is approximately 9% longer, and that's information from ScalarWorks. So what that means is they have the same approximately tube size. So because the tube on the M5 is a little bit longer, kind of the perceived size at the end when you're looking through it is a little bit smaller. So the side picture is slightly smaller when you're looking through it. Personally, I haven't noticed it, but it should be noted that based off of math and science that is true. In use, I haven't seen it because at the same time, because the battery compartment is on the top on this particular Aimpoint, compared to on the side, that means that looking around the peripherals, I have a much better sight picture. Not a huge, but it is a better sight picture. So because of that, I do prefer the Comp M5 for the most part. Now for my lefties out there, where on the T2, you have the battery compartment on the right side, so it's somewhat occluding your open eye, looking out, getting that good field of view and that good SA and all that type of stuff, the Comp M5 is definitely a little bit more superior. Now you're kind of splitting hairs at this point, but this is information that I wanted to give to you guys to help you make your choice. Now, a lot of people are not happy with where the battery compartment is, being on the top, because the Comp M4 originally had that, and then they moved to the Comp M4S, which has the battery compartment low. I agree with you guys. I would prefer to have the battery compartment low, but from talking to Aimpoint and to their engineers when I was at SHOT Show, they said that that was not possible due to how this optic was particularly designed. So we'll have to see kind of what ends up happening with that, if there's advances in technology that allow them to move the battery compartment down. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know why that's not possible, but that's what I was told. Time will tell. I'm sure if they do a Comp M5S version, it will be incredibly popular. But for now, the battery compartment is on the top. It's not that big of a deal, but I know that a lot of people have talked about that. So, battery compartment. All right, parallax. So parallax is when I'm not dead center on the optic, how much air is there when I'm looking at that dot. So if I'm not completely dead center with that dot, if I'm kind of offside, you know, I'm shooting from weird angles around barricades, cars, I'm sweaty, tired, all that kind of stuff, how off is that dot going to be? Now on cheaper dots, I'm not going to name any specific names of companies, but on cheaper red dots, parallax can be pretty bad, up to 12 MOA, even on some good red dots out there. Now, what's made the Comp M5 and the T2 so good is that they have excellent parallax, so they have very little. So with the Comp M5, I've seen around a variation of around 1 to 1.5 MOA, which is just about on par with what the Aimpoint T2 is. The only optic that has very little to no parallax was the EOTech, which of course has some other trade-offs like battery life and a couple other things. So that is something to note. It hasn't been a big problem for me. I've made shots out to 400 with it. With this optic, I've made shots out to 700. So it hasn't been a problem for me, but it is something that we do want to note nonetheless, that there is a small parallax error that is superior to all the other, pretty much every other optic out there. Thermal drift. So thermal drift is a problem that plagues every optic for the most part, to some extent or another. How bad that is going to depend on the design. The T2 and the Aimpoint Comp M5 suffer from, for all intents and purposes, about a 0 MOA shift. The EOTech famously had a 5 MOA shift, or 3 to 5, with the older models before they fixed it. So thermal drift is always something that we want to kind of take a look at, especially when we're in environments that where those temperatures might be reached. But the Comp M5 and the T2 do not have those problems, so we are good to go there. Okay, I want to take a quick moment to compare this to the Comp M4, because a lot of people think because the tube size on the M4 is a little bit larger than the Comp M5, that it's a better sight picture. But because the tube on the Comp M5 is 40% shorter than the Comp M4, you actually have roughly the same sight picture. At the same time, you have a much smaller optic and a much lighter optic. Now, as far as battery life, the Comp M4 has a ridiculously long battery life. But at the same time, when you're measuring your battery life in 5 to 10 years, I don't know how much of a big deal it is. But nonetheless, I do think that the Comp M5 is a superior optic for those reasons that I noted. All right. As far as being a shooter, just objectively looking through this optic is fast, quick, tough, all that good stuff. Everything you'd expect from an Aimpoint, it is. I love Aimpoints. I consider them probably among the best optics on the market currently. So there have been no problems here. I shred with this. I take long shots with it. It's excellent. Behind a magnifier, it is super crisp and clear compared to like the T1, which had some problems. So you can expect excellent performance out of the Comp M5. It is an optic that is made for combat, that is made for duty use, that is made for competition use. It will do all of those excellently. So if that's what you're thinking about using this for, rest assured it will serve you very well. So we've talked a little bit about pros, what I like about this optic. So let's take a quick moment to talk about some of the cons. So with this optic, the adjustment compared to the T2, where the T2 is a knob on the side, this knob is facing back towards you, so you can easily see what the setting is at. With the Comp M5, because you have the knob facing right back towards you, I like it. All the numbers, I'm not as huge a fan of that. It can be a little confusing, especially to my Marines out there, because who can't count past 3, so it's really difficult because it goes all the way up to 12. That's hard for them. So I like the little knob at the back, just a little dot. It shows you how bright it's going to be. Way easier. Makes a lot more sense for all my Marines out there. And that matters because they got to do all that kill, yut stuff. So I think this is definitely a Marine Corps approved optic. It should be Marine Corps approved, but I'm really hesitant to make anything or say anything's Marine Corps approved because Marines break everything, even in ACOG. I saw it. How do they do that? You have 3 night vision settings, 6 daytime settings. There is a little bit of a jump from the number 3 to the number 4 daytime setting. Those top settings are for like whiteout conditions, and it works really well. Some people haven't liked it compared to the Aimpoint T2 because it's a little bit more of a jump. It's not really bothered me. It's worked well for me. I've never had a problem with having a bad dot intensity and all that type of stuff. So Aimpoint Comp M5 just rocks. All right, cons, price. It costs a lot of money. It's around $750 plus usually. So with a good mount, you're looking closer to $900. So that's a lot of money to put into this. Now, a quick plug here for ScalarWorks again. If you are gonna get a mount, I would highly, highly recommend their mount. It's a cool little knurled knob that twists to tighten it onto the rail. Super steady, super sturdy, super light and skeletonized. Probably, in my opinion, the best mount on the market currently. And I do love Gh3 mounts and I do love all the other mounts, but I do consider this the best mount that's currently available. Another thing, con, is that for night vision shooting, I personally prefer the EOTech. I think that the EOTech has a little bit better light transmission. It's that big old open window compared to the Comp M5 and the T2. That being said, I have taken the Comp M5 and shot it at under night vision out to about 450 yards approximately, and it's great. It's fine. It works wonderfully. It's just if I had a choice, I'm going to pick the EOTech because I find it superior. Just wanted to note that there. So guys, what it comes down to is this. If you want the toughest aim point on the market, Comp M5 is it. If you're doing any type of parachuting ops or ops where you might have some impacts to the front glass, the Comp M5 is no doubt a tougher optic than the T2. Now the T2 is probably going to perform fine. I'm just saying if you want the absolute toughest optic, the Comp M5 is it. Now for the vast majority of shooters in the United States, honestly, I think that the T2 is probably a better optic. It's lighter, a better sight picture personally from what I've seen, just because the really short tube, same diameter, all that kind of stuff, great battery life, and the batteries aren't hard to find in the United States. But if you're one of those guys where you just want the absolute toughest optic, you can't go wrong with the Comp M5. It will serve you very well. So with everything, guys, check to see if it's what you need and get a good mount for it. Again, the cool thing about the Comp M5 is that the mounts that work for the T2 work for the Comp M5, so it's very easy. So get a good mount, shoot a lot of ammo, get good, and that's what's going to matter. Now, guys, if you're looking for training, lots of good companies out there. You have Cogworks, Bear Solutions, Gray Hive, and of course, Esoteric. Take a look at all those companies, and as always, guys, stay looking cool because we know that's what matters. All right, quick note, guys. I know you guys are going to want to know a little bit about the rifle. So we have a BCM MCMR, which is the M-Lock 14.5 upper, BCM muzzle device. We have a ScalarWorks front sight, CAC rear sight. The lower is a Radian ADAC lower, so it is ambidextrous, huge fan of it. We have a Talon safety, which is a 45-degree throw, which I'm a huge fan of now. We have a Gh3 trigger, which is an experimental one, which I'm testing out, and I'll talk more about it later. I have an Airsaco 600 series light, Surefire dual pressure pad. The reason for that is I mount night vision to this a lot. Currently I have it in a lightweight configuration because I was teaching a course. I have some BCM rail panels right here on the M-LOK. Moving back, we have Magpul grip, and we have a B5 stock with a Slingster from Faro Concepts. So all excellent products, endorse all these, love them all. Pretty much all this was given to me except for the Aimpoint Comp M5, so just be aware of that. And of course, as always, we have a Radiant charging handle, the Raptor, which I'm a huge fan of. So good on that, and that is my setup. I've got nothing else for you, so go. You guys, nothing is better than showing up with flowers every once in a while. Highly recommended if you're trying to impress a girl or a guy, depending on what you're doing. That little kind of thoughtful touch of flowers really matters. So get out there and get your girl some flowers and have yourself a nice night. And as always, I love you guys. Take care.